Okay, we're going to go through the complicated cards in this deck. Okay, explain each one. Okay, first one, Glimpse of the Cosmos. We've got four of these. It's a brilliant card. Okay, you can use it twice. When it's in your hand, you can play the two mana, and you look at the top three cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, and then the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Okay, so you get to choose to put a card in your hand, as simple as that, and the other two go in the bottom of your deck. Okay, it's very useful. And then it goes into your graveyard, and then when you've got a giant on the field, you can play this again. So sometimes you might see two or three glimpses of the cosmoses on the right hand side of your hand. Okay, that means you can play them. Cathartic Pyre. You've got two choices here. I think you're used to this one. It does 3 damage to a target creature, or you can discard 2 cards and draw that many cards. You can discard just 1 card if you like, and you draw 1 card. Okay, very useful, but it's good for early damage if you've got it into your hand. Also, if your hand's not very good, you can get rid of 2 cards and draw another 2 cards. Great. Invasion of the Giants. Okay, we've got 4 of these as well. First turn we scry 2. You get to know what the next 2 cards are going to be, and you decide whether you want to play them or not. You can put them in one on top of the other if you like. If say like you, for instance, you want another land card, desperately you want another land card, put that on top so you get that next go. Okay. The second thing is draw a card. Then you may reveal a giant card from your hand. And when you do, Invasion of the Giants deals 2 damage to an opponent or a planeswalker. Not a creature, an opponent or a planeswalker. Okay? And then on the third turn, the next giant you spell cast, it costs 2 less to cast. So if you've got a Calamity Bear in your hand, he's only going to cost 2 red land cards. Glasspaw Mimic, you've got a choice here. You can either play it as a land. It's primarily a land. I would, on the early stage, I would advise perhaps play it as a land if you need to. Count it as a land. But the luxury of this card is later on in the game, perhaps when you've got more land cards, you can copy one of your giant creatures. Okay, you just select Glasspaw Mimic instead of Glasspaw Shore, and it comes a copy of a giant creature, and that costs 3 to cast. It doesn't cost anything to class it as a land, but the land comes in tapped. Bear that in mind. Giant's Grasp. As long as we've got a giant on the field, if we got a giant on the battlefield, we can gain control of an opponent's card. That can be a creature, that can be a planeswalker, it can be an enchantment. You grab hold of their card. So if they've got an enchantment that's being a right pain in the arse, and they've only got one creature, you might want to grab that enchantment. That enchantment works for you, not for your opponent. So if his enchantment means it gains life each time you play, you're going to gain the life. Basalt Ravager, we've only got 3 of these. This is a much better card than Calamity Bearer. Shatterskull Charger, sorry. Shatterskull Charger would come in, you could do an early damage and then go back into your hand, and then later on it can come out on the battlefield. But this is more effective in my opinion. Okay, it does 1 damage to any target where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. Well, all your creatures are giants. So if you've got 3 giants on the battlefield, it does 3 damage. If you've got Calamity Bearer, it doubles that damage. And you can do that damage to a creature or a player. Calamity Bearer, nice simple card. When it comes in, every giant source you control does double damage. Double damage. So if you've got 2 of these Calamity Bearers out, it's double that double damage. Shitloads of damage. Quakebreaker, this is very useful. Try and always play this first before Quakebreaker. Why? Because if Quakebreaker dies, it goes into your graveyard. 9 times out of 10 it goes into graveyard unless they exile it. It does 2 damage from the graveyard. Okay, so if you've got Calamity Bear on the battlefield, it'll do 4 damage from the graveyard. Okay, Squash. We've only got 3 of these. Squash, as you know, bear in mind, does 6 damage to a target creature or planeswalker Okay, it doesn't do double damage if you've got a Calamity Bear out. It's not a giant source. Okay, but it only costs 2 if you've got a creature out on the battlefield. So bear that in mind. Okay, so if you've got 6 lands, for instance, and your opponent's got a 6 creature, and you've got 6 lands, you could play Basalt Ravager. Okay, do 1 damage to that creature, and then do squash and squash the creature completely out of the game. Battle of Frost and Fire. Okay, it's an enchantment, again, like Invasion of the Giants. It goes onto the right-hand side of the battlefield. It does 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. 4 damage, whoosh. Okay, so it's going to wipe out a lot of creatures. Okay, and then on the second go, you scry 3 cards. You get to choose if you want to play those next 3 cards next. And on the third go, you can cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater this turn, and then draw 2 cards and discard a card. Okay. Cyclone Summon, we've only got 2 because he's expensive, but what he does is return all permanents to the owner's hand except for giants, wizards and lands. So if they've got a pain in the arse planeswalker, shitload of creatures, they all go back to the owner's hand. Okay, and then you've got a clear run next go. Now the beauty of this is, if you've got Glasspool Mimic in your hand, following go, you can play Glasspool Mimic and copy Cyclone Summoner, and it does it again. Hall of Storm Giants is the last of the complicated lands. Okay, your Hall of Storm Giants looks slightly different to mine, but it's the same card. You play as a land, and then once you've got 7 lands out, you can play Hall of Storm Giants as a 7/7 creature. Bear that in mind. Okay, don't forget that you've got that in your land card. So if you think you've got nothing to play, and you've got Hall of Storm Giants in amongst your lands, and you've got 7 lands, play it. Okay, and that's it, really. They're all the complicated cards. We've got enough time to play Sparky. We might have 2 or 3 minutes to play Sparky. Let's see. I don't think we've got enough time, but I'll do another film. You've seen it in action anyway. Okay, bye bye.